Alright guys, that's Kremp again, so I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The first weekend of Major 2 qualifiers is done and dusted. Some interesting games here from start to finish, of course, including the first OpTic versus Thieves rematch of the new season. First time that Kenny, of course, after leaving the Los Angeles Thieves, going to the new team, we got to see these two teams come to blows. Very interesting results. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. This was hilarious as well, if you guys haven't seen this clip going around. Cellium's tweet about this kind of blew up, of course. Here's BenJRizzim on a Karachi hardpoint. I don't know where this boy is going. He tries to jump over this wall. It doesn't work out too well. And then he decides, I don't even know what's going through his head here, to be honest. He's trying to go to P1 apparently, but he goes to jump over this wall, which is definitely not possible. And then he realizes where he actually is on the map before getting himself into a gunfight and swiftly getting absolutely incinerated, it seems, by the cut at the end of that one. Now, look, I know that Ben doesn't like to get roasted for his somewhat suboptimal Call of Duty gameplay. I don't get it from his POV, but you gotta say it's hilarious, right? Ben was getting pretty tight over this, I'm not gonna lie, on the timeline. For example, this one from Naval was pretty good. Why is Shots not playing the hill here, Tom? It doesn't make sense because, of course, look, Ben criticizes the way that people play the game, and I don't think you necessarily have to be good at COD to criticize some of the decisions the pros make. Like, you can have a mind for the game, even if you're not necessarily so good at it, but it does kind of help, you know? Like, if you can play the game to some sort of level, it makes people give you some more credibility, and I think Ben has generally good takes on like the business side of things, and whenever those topics come up on the flank, I think he's absolutely invaluable to that show being great to watch. But of course, people criticize him because, you know, like, maybe his plays in the game aren't the best, but he's obviously talking about the pros and the way that they play, and I don't really think there should be that much in it. Of course, you know, I can't exactly say too much. I think I'm better at COD than Ben, and if you go back to like the really old school days of this channel, it's just gameplays, and I did have another channel, TacticalRab Gaming, which still exists with gameplays on there, so you can see some TacticalRab gameplay if you really want to. It's not anything special, so I wouldn't necessarily advertise it, but you know, in the same way, I can't really criticize Ben, right, for not being a pro, and therefore he can't criticize people when that's kind of what we do sometimes here on the channel. So, you know, I can't go too hard on Ben, but others were. Of course, Pada says the following, and Ben, as we see, was getting pretty tight about this, right? He replies, "Weird take, brother." So, I don't know, I think Ben should kind of just have owned it, to be fair, because at the end of the day, he's not going anywhere from the flank, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But I thought his responses were all rather entertaining. So these were the three games of the day: Guerrillas versus Legion, Ultra Rocket, and of course Thieves OpTic, that we shall most certainly dive into. We've got to start though with Vegas Guerrillas, because this was a series that I thought Guerrillas had the slight edge in. Of course, Vegas made that questionable roster change, Standy gone, Geo in, especially keeping Purge around was a bit of a question mark. But to be fair, now it's not like Purge was the star piece of the puzzle today, nor was Geo. They both, you know, they played fine, but they weren't setting the world alight. It was Attach that really came to play, and it does make me wonder, right, because Attach, when he was benched from Rocker last year, came on stream and said he didn't want to play in the really slow way that he was being apparently told to play by the coaching staff. Attach has been effectively let loose, it seems, on this Vegas team, and he's been really impressive. Like, Attach, Slasher, obviously accuracy we'll discuss, even Clay to a certain extent. Lots of the old guard have been frying it this year, and Attach is definitely one of those. They lost the Search after winning the map 1. Attach then just dominated the control, and then they won the game 4 as well. It was a close fought Rio, but here comes Attach. I mean, honestly, I don't know exactly what got into Attach here for this reaction, because we don't usually see any energy to quite this level. I guess he was really just clapping back at some of the criticism around this only one-man roster change, because of course Purge moving to the SMG, and I think Purge looked more comfortable on the sub. Like, he was on that second AR. Purge has now moved into effectively Standy's role, and he looks better there, I think, than he did previously. As I say, it's not like he was hard carrying the team all of a sudden, but I think they kind of proved to some extent in this series that their one-man change was the right move, you know? Like, Guerrillas have been a solid team. I mean, Assault had an absolute stinker of a series here, to be honest, but Attaches, you know, putting the birds up. I just love to see the energy, right? Because I know there's always talk about these older guard that they don't really lose the talent, right? And that's very so clear with a guy like Attach. It's really about, you know, the drive, the motivation, the passion, and it feels like it's still there for Dylan as it stands. And he says, like, I got caught up at the moment there, my apologies. Great first win for the new team. That was not directed at Standy, still one of my best friends in the community, but of course, at the end of the day, Standy dropped, and the team improves, it seems. Now, I think it's a little bit too early to say. At the end of the day, these teams are fighting for champs qualification. They're fighting not to be the 12th best team. So I want to see a bit more evidence, right? And they did lose the search and destroy in a way that makes me question whether if it had have gone game 5, as it nearly did, whether it could have been a different story. But still, I mean, when you play one series, you've got to always consider sample size in play to some degree. So we'll see in the next series they play whether they can go one step further. But I was impressed by Vegas today. Attach obviously was the standout, basically had a 1.5. Assault had effectively half of Attach's KD, which wasn't ideal. But for now, it looks like the one-man change that Vegas has made has been an improvement and raises questions on how it keeps happening that Standy tends to go and then the team seems to improve, but I think time will tell more so on that one. We then got, though, Toronto versus ROKKR. Still great to see that Toronto putting on these live watch parties. Obviously, like, ROKKR have done them themselves as well in the past, and it's like the only good thing about franchising, as far as I'm concerned, is that you do get this local activation. You do get, like, you know, local fans in Toronto turn up, and of course other cities as well. It's the same story. It really is great to see, and I hope that this can continue post CDL in some respects. That maybe if it's no longer Toronto, but it's just Ultra, or if it's Splice or whatever, they still host tournaments themselves wherever they might be, so that you still get that kind of local fan thing. I think that would be nice to see, but of course time will tell on that one. And actually Adam who said here, because JKL commented on this, and he did a tweet that basically said, like, you know, the COD League's here and it's stronger than ever. We'll see about that. From Boston to Miami to Carolina to Toronto, the road of the championship goes to the heartland of North America and EU too soon. So whether there are plans in place to do something in Europe, I think a lot of us fans would be very much happy to see it. But this was a fascinating series because ROKKR, they came top 4 at the major. There was a question as to whether, not exactly that was a fluke, but, you know, whether that was some degree of an overperformance, which I felt that it was. But they came to show this series that they are the real deal. Beating Ultra is really hard. And again, the map 1 skid row here, Ultra extended their hardpoint win streak up to 14. I mean, that's the CDL record by quite some margin now. 17-1 after this point on the season in hardpoints. You know, just an insane win streak that they put together here. They did lose it though game 4, and definitely Ultra showed some good ice to get to the position they were in. They eventually clutched to a round 11 here in the search and destroy to get this one done. Again though, ROKKR put up a fight. They do tend to like this map here on Karachi, but down 2-0, then all of a sudden accuracy came to play. And it's kind of remarkable that last season and the season before, Lamar, accuracy, had Pred and Sib, right? That was his duo that were pretty much hard carrying that Surge team. His new Pred and Sib is Linz and himself, effectively, right? Like, Lamar has become the player that they needed on the team in terms of just delivering the performance. And it's great to see, right? Again, like, you know, the old guard, there was all this talk that accuracy, and I said it myself, and I think it was justifiable, that kind of year on year for the last 4 or 5 years, accuracy individually has regressed. Maybe not substantially year on year, but every year he's been slightly less impactful from a KD side, and I felt like this year it might be the last year, but on this evidence, that's not the case at all. I think he might have changed around his, like, controller mapping as well, so now he's able to fry more, like he can slide cancel and stuff like this, which is massively beneficial, and he obviously can still shoot straight, as all these guys still can. So he dominated the map 3 control. He then frankly dominated the map 4 Rio, which was not the map. I mean, this is an SMG haven. This was not the map that I expected Ultra really to lose their streak on, and it was not the map I expected accuracy to turn up. I mean, look at the numbers here. Accuracy finished this one 27-19 to break Ultra's win streak and take them to a game 5. But the thing is with Ultra, they're so hard to beat, and the game 5, they just decided, all right, guys, you've had your fun, Minnesota. Now it's time for us to just win emphatically. It was really the round 1 here that was the dagger, because ROKKR had a 4 versus 3. Ultra played it super patient, and I think there's very few teams in the world that could actually win the 4v3 that they won on that very first round, and that was such a momentum shift. Honestly, like, their team play is so good, and then you just have individual players like this. I mean, Envoy winning this 1v2 here with the Renetti. We talked earlier today, right, that some of the pros were saying they'd nerf the Renetti, and maybe that's true in, like, a silent patch, but it definitely didn't look like it from Envoy's POV here, because they're already up 3-0. What a dagger, right? 15 seconds on the clock. Envoy gets the first, and then Vivid gets giga slammed here, so the defuse comes through, and that's the type of individual play that Envoy brings to the team. So they send them to a game 5, but when they got to the game 5, ROKKR got absolutely slammed, and as Scrappy says, Lamar a Betty Legacy series, but of course, they still got the victory regardless. So impressive stuff from Ultra as we expect to this point. I mean, I think they delivered a good result. I mean, to be fair to Rocker though, the first team to take Ultra to Game 5 this season, the only team that's taken them to Game 5 apart from that was, of course, Boston beat them in 3, so that wasn't taking them to Game 5, and FaZe did it in the grand finals of the major, but that was a best of 7, right? So that doesn't really count. Definitely the big question though that I still have about this team is around Awakening, right? Because again, Awakening was, I wouldn't say a non-factor, he was okay, but again, it's another like 0.9, 0.85-ish for Awakening, which we've seen a lot of, surprisingly so far this season, and it's accuracy that's really delivering on the AR side. So I think Rocker have to take some positives from this, absolutely they will, but at the same time, there are questions that if Awakening was just delivering more performance, or there was a player in Awakening's position that could deliver more performance, you know, people have talked about Illy, but unfortunately that seems rather unlikely right now given the circumstances, then they could even get better. But I think Rocker, like, maybe they're cementing their place as the 4th best team until proven otherwise right now. But the fastest series of the day here by quite some landslide was OpTic Texas versus the Los Angeles Thieves. When we saw this clip, of course, of Kenny and Kremp going at it a couple of weeks ago now, there was some debate as to whether Kremp would be coming different in this series, or whether Kenny wanted to absolutely prove, beyond any doubt at all, that he was right to say that Kremp wasn't the player that maybe Thieves think that he is. Kenny, of course, back up against his former team for the first time. Los Angeles Thieves, historically over the last few years, the organisation that's always beaten OpTic. This is a kind of crazy stat I saw going around as well. Over the last couple of years, since basically OpTic Texas became a thing in Vanguard, no team has beaten them more than Thieves, by quite some margin actually as well. FaZe have 4 wins against OpTic over the last few seasons. This is over the last 3 years actually, so okay, 2.5 years I suppose. We're only just getting underway in Modern Warfare 3, but you can see Rocker, Subliners, Mutineers, Ultra and others have, you know, 4 victories is kind of like the going number for good teams against OpTic over the last couple of seasons. Thieves have 7, but that's predominantly with the Envoy, Octane, Drazah, Kenny team that just always at OpTic's number. That is not the team anymore, and Thieves have made a couple of roster changes coming into this one. They, maybe part of their gameplay looked better, Thieves. There were some, maybe, small positives here to take away, but not that many, and OpTic came to play and showed the form that we really expect to see from OpTic against a team that's bottom of the league right now and can't win a hardpoint to save their life. I mean, it was a Rio hardpoint game 1, and this is just so perfect for OpTic, right? I really do think that the map pool changes have helped the OpTic team, because it should be no surprise to anyone that OpTic are pretty damn nice at Rio. Shotzzy, it's like a perfect map for him. It should be a great map for Pred as well. And I wouldn't say I'm surprised that Thieves played it against them, but I just think that they were asking for trouble to some degree. And yeah, OpTic just smoked them game 1. Wasn't even close. 250 to like 122. One of the more dominant ones I've seen so far. And to be honest, this entire series was the story of both of the SMGs really on Thieves getting slammed. Afro was getting tucked. It wasn't always on a sub, to be fair as well. On invasion control, you kind of need more of an AR situation, and Kremp as well was having a difficult time. So OpTic, you know, showed the level that we expected from them. This is what you expect a top team to do to a team that just isn't a top team, and maybe there's some optimism to take away, like the search and destroy. To be honest, even this, like, it was just one-way traffic, and there was never a feeling that I had in this entire series that this was going to go any other way than an OpTic 3-0 after the first couple of minutes of game 1. Even this is pretty funny. Dashy could have just shot him in the back. He decided to go for the punch just to rub salt in the wounds. Doesn't happen, of course, and he has to get the kill normally, but he still gets it here on Nastie because, you know, I think Nastie played pretty well. There was actually some interesting moments game 1 when Ghosty was really more so on the SMG than Nastie was, which was interesting just because maybe Nastie's going to be the main AR. I think he played fine. But they went to an invasion control and just Kenny was making big play after big play really against his former team. And look, it was a classic defense fest. Defenses win all the rounds. And yeah, I don't like invasion control. I know that offense is more achievable on it now than it has previously been, but it's still not particularly achievable. And it's still just a painful watch, I think, generally invasion. But Thieves just run into the blender. And look, I like Afro. I've talked about that before. I think that keeping him over JoeDeceives was the right move for now. They might change their mind on that very shortly. But the amount of times that Afro gets into like a good position and then sprints or changes his angle and like loses an easily winnable gunfight because he just gets a bit jittery. It's frustrating to watch, right? I think many of you guys probably feel the same way because he's obviously got so much talent, but you don't always see it on display due to, I think stupid mistakes at times. And also Thieves' comms, like Ghosty was trying to do his best in their communication, but man, it was so frantic, I felt, in that hardpoint that I don't think they really knew what was going on half the time. So lots to work on for Thieves. It's expected you make a two-man change, you come up against a very solid team, that you are going to have a pretty hard time. But yeah, man, this was pretty ugly to watch, to be honest. So as Kenny says, great to start to stage 2. GG's Thieves, of course. Well, he's taken down the younglings, as it were. And these were the overall box score numbers. If this is a bit small for you guys, 0.98 for Ghosty, 0.93 for Nastie, 0.77 for Kremp, 0.73 for Afro, and then the green carpet, as it were, on the other side of the station. So very much interested to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Lots of storylines, I'm sure, over the coming days. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.